Medical cannabis has been legal in Canada since 2001. Join Rick Haaland as he shares his experience and expertise exploring the many ways you can safely use medical cannabis as a true medicine. In our training system, we never smoke the medicine and we do not get high. Let's join Rick in the studio for a conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rick Haaland. I am from diplomatsofdope.com, where we teach people how to responsibly use medical marijuana. I want to bring your attention to something that the President of the United States said just this morning, April 4th, 2019. He said, and I quote, "The noise from wind turbines causes cancer." And he said that's what does it. That's what causes cancer. Just the wind or the noise from wind turbines cause cancer. Without any proof, without any studies, without any indication that any of that statement was true, he just put it out there. Now, normally I'm not political and I'm not picking on Donald Trump. But here's what I am pointing out to you. Medical marijuana and marijuana come from the same plant, essentially. And the politicians lied to you a long time ago about marijuana. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you, I'll set the record straight. I'll tell you exactly what happened. There was a study, and I have this study on my computer. Email me for the study if you want, and I'll send it to you. And it was a study about monkeys way back 30 or 40 years ago, where they wanted to, or maybe 50 years ago, where the government wanted to prove that marijuana was bad for you and it actually caused cancer or caused something. They were looking for negative aspects. So the rules were that they were going to use these monkeys and they were going to give them the equivalent of, say, the smoke of one joint per day, and do a study for however long the study was going to be. Well, time slipped away on them, and all of a sudden a couple of years went by and they said, oh my goodness, we should have been doing this, one joint a day for the monkeys for a long time, so we'll just increase it. And they gave them so much. They have them masks on. They put masks on the monkeys. And they fed so much marijuana smoke into the gas masks of the monkeys, or the masks they were using, that it actually smothered the animals. And this is verifiable proof. Then the government of the United States in that day said, look, we've got proof. When we did autopsies on the monkeys and their brains, we proved that marijuana smoking actually kills brain cells. Which was a lie. It was a complete lie. It was a complete farce. It's like Donald Trump saying to you, the noise from windmills causes cancer. The same thing here. You've been lied to about marijuana. So let me set the record straight again. The monkeys were smothered to death. I have the report. Then the government of the United States, from that time on, said, we're going to use this as our cornerstone of our story to spread the message that marijuana is bad and it's harmful and it's addictive and it has no medical benefit whatsoever. So I don't usually make podcast shows about politicians, but politicians lie. You know this. Politicians lied to you years ago about medical marijuana or about medical marijuana itself. So let's start from here. Let's just admit, okay, we've been lied to. So let's see if we can get rid of the stigma, get rid of the history, get rid of all the garbage about marijuana that you've been fed, and let's start over again. I'm here to have a conversation with you about the marijuana plant. My pain specialist put me on medical marijuana almost 5 years ago. And I got off of all of my opioids within 2 months. I was on up to 600 pills a month for pain. Plus, I was changing a fentanyl patch every 3 days. Yep, I've been on fentanyl. I've been on OxyContin. I've been on tramadol. cocaine, not cocaine, sorry, Tylenol with codeine in it, not cocaine. I've been through a lot when it comes to prescription drugs. And I can tell you, using cannabis to replace my prescription drugs has been a night and day difference. Now, I want to talk to you today about the church and cannabis. As Christians, we're instructed in the Bible to trust your government officials. Whoever's in power, that's what you're supposed to do. But the Bible didn't say anything about when they lie so grossly. What do you do with that? Right? Noise from windmills will give you cancer. What are you supposed to do with that? Do you automatically judge the person's IQ from that statement? I do. It's kind of a knee-jerk reaction. It's not true. We know it's not true, so we just dismiss him, or his IQ is fairly low. When a politician lies, they're not thinking about the harm it could do when they spread misinformation. Cannabis can be used when you're going through cancer treatments. People that go through chemo and radiation, they've reported they throw up 60 to 70 times a day. You can show people how to use cannabis properly without smoking it and without getting high, where you can take those episodes of vomiting almost down to zero. Down, way down. The majority of, and sometimes you can get it down to zero. Which would you like to do when you're going through cancer treatment, when you're going through chemo, and you know it's going to make you violently sick and you won't be able to hold down any food? I've seen videos of kids going through cancer treatments and they're eating right after they get their chemo. They're hungry. And their parents are using medical cannabis in a responsible way. The church needs to be aware of how many different ways you can use cannabis without using the active THC part. Right now, I'm working with a large organization to see if we can't start a cannabis juicing program by juicing the fresh leaves of the cannabis plant. And let me tell you why that's so important. When you juice the leaves of the cannabis plant, it is virtually impossible to get high. Why? It's because you haven't taken that plant and you haven't dried it and cured it. Now, let's be honest here. They don't harvest the leaves for the medicine, for the bulk of the medicine. They use the leaves in Rick Simpson oil or full spectrum oil. They put the whole plant in there, the leaves, the stalks, the flowers, everything. That's full spectrum. But if you juice just the fresh leaves, you will get almost all of the benefits, not necessarily the quick pain-killing benefits, but you'll get almost all of the benefits of the marijuana plant without any of the risk, zero. And I think this is the important part that the church needs to know. I use medical cannabis 4 different ways before I leave the house in the morning. I take a tincture that's alcohol-based, and it's a little thumb dropper. I take a half thumb dropper. I take the size of half a grain of rice of Rick Simpson oil in the morning. Then I take what I call brown pills because I vaporize my cannabis twice a day. So I take the leftovers from that and take number 3 gelatin capsules and fill them up. And that's medicine too because it's loaded with CBD. So I take brown pills in the morning that I make through using gelatin capsules. And then I make a wonderful sore muscle rub from the cannabis plant and coconut oil and hemp oil and a little bit of beeswax. And so that's 4 different ways that I use cannabis, and I don't have to smoke it, and I don't have to get high. But it offers me very good and solid pain relief. It's very important. Very important that we talk about that, because there are people in the church who have been taught and lied to that says cannabis has no medical benefits. I have 106 30-minute podcasts from a radio show that they allowed me to use their podcasts. It was in Victoria, Vancouver Island. They've since gone out of business, but I have over 53 hours of people and doctors and specialists and cancer specialists and medical doctor specialists talking about medical cannabis. And I can send them to you. I'll try if I can get them up on the internet. I'll do what I can to see if I can put them on a place on the internet so you can have access to them. But everything from cancer to IBS to cataracts to chronic pain. Chronic pain is the big one. So the church, I don't think, is aware that there are many, many, many ways of using cannabis, medical cannabis, without ever getting high. Ever. If you juice the leaves of the plant, you cannot get high, period. That's a scientific fact, and no one can argue with that. So I want to offer that program to the church because there are a lot of people who suffer unnecessarily in the church that happen to be on prescription drugs. And prescription drugs don't work extremely well by themselves. As a matter of fact, a lot of opioids can start to lose their effectiveness in as little as 6 weeks. So my concern in the church is that people get on prescription drugs and then they try to medicate their pain if the prescription drugs don't work. They try to medicate their pain by using alcohol. And that is almost always going to end in disaster. Because here's what alcohol does. Any alcohol that you take when you're in chronic pain turns to sugar. Sugar keeps the inflammation going, and inflammation keeps you sick, keeps you in that catch-22 situation, chronic pain all the time. When you medicate your chronic pain with alcohol, you're asking for trouble because usually a lot of people will combine them with pharmaceutical drugs. Now you've made a hybrid drug or a hybrid situation that you have to be very careful with because, yeah, sure, the pain can be altered and your mind can think, oh, I'm having fun, I'm not in pain as much. But let me share something with you. Alcohol in short supply, in small amounts, is stimulating. If you have chronic pain, why would you want to stimulate anything in your body? You want to calm down. Alcohol in larger quantities is a depressant. Why would you want to have a depressant when you're dealing with chronic pain? Alcohol is probably the thing that gets between you and feeling better more than anything else if you're trying to use alcohol to treat chronic pain with. When you start using medical marijuana as a medicine for a reason to treat chronic pain, you will find that you will drink a lot less. It's because the marijuana takes away the desire for alcohol. Medical marijuana has been used as a treatment for drug addiction and alcohol addiction for over 100 years, and it's been used very well. Look, there are people out in the world that are probably going to be alcoholics and drug addicts their entire lives. They get off, and they get on, and they get off, and they go rehab, and they get... Some of those people will never win. And a lot of times, you can use medical cannabis as a replacement therapy and get their health back on track. Control their PTSDs, control their trauma, help them sleep better, control their pain, control their anxiety. I mean, there are so many things in the medical marijuana plant that I would like to tell you. There's not enough time in this podcast. My advice to the church, the Christian church, would be this. Get curious. Because if you don't start getting curious about the uses of medical cannabis, somebody else is going to start educating your church members. And those people are not going to do it correctly. Some of those people that are going to educate people about the proper use of marijuana, stay away from them, because they're just going to say, oh, well, when you're doing your marijuana, right, you can just vape or smoke it and just put a little bit of, dust a little bit of cocaine. You get a better hit. No, that will never work. Use medical marijuana only and do not combine it with other drugs. When you start sprinkling your medical cannabis with cocaine or ecstasy or any other thing, crystal meth, you create a hybrid drug. Now you have addiction problems. Now you have a situation where I feel really good. I feel differently than when I was on straight marijuana. That's how the dealers hook you. How do you think the dealers get a lifelong customer? Cannabis itself, it's very difficult to get addicted to cannabis itself. But the drug dealers, the underground drug dealers, they know this. So what do? When you go to buy your cannabis, they just sprinkle it with a little cocaine. You'll never even know. And when you smoke it, boom, wow. You've got an experience. Now you've got the cannabis, which calms you down and gives you a lot of energy, and you've also got the cocaine, which you can go all day and not feel tired. So people start to like this. Well, now you've got a hybrid drug, don't you? And when they go to the hospital, a lot of times people say, oh yeah, we see a lot of hospital visits with marijuana. Do you see a lot of hospital visits with just marijuana? Or is it when the person gets to the hospital, they've had some marijuana and somebody's dusted it with cocaine or another chemical or another drug, they've smoked it, and then they're really high. Like they have to go to the hospital because they combine those two things. Look, medical cannabis is, one, dose dependent. Take too much, you're going to get high. Take too little, you won't have the desired effect. Take just the right amount, you can get major portions of your life back. So I think when we're having a conversation with the church, we really have to be, well, we have to be patient. We also have to be understanding, because the government has lied to the church for the whole time it was under prohibition, right? There are videos I can show you how medical cannabis helps people so much. It's just different than night and day. And I will put some of these videos up on my website just to show you, because to be honest with you, if you're not good at researching marijuana, you may make the mistake of putting in the word marijuana and a whole bunch of negative stuff is going to come up. But if you are searching for legitimate information on marijuana and you're using it for medicine, do the search medical marijuana. And then medical marijuana at WebMD or medical marijuana, medical doctors that use marijuana, find out. But we can't not have this conversation anymore. Like I say, and this is a message to the church, you can get Christian people that responsibly use marijuana, medical marijuana, to teach your members. Or you can get somebody that believes in a recreational program and really take you down, your members down to places where they will struggle. Because you don't want to stumble using the medicine because you're using the medicine the wrong way. You want to work with people that have been using it for a long time. I've been using it for almost 5 years. So was my wife. I got a prescription from a pain specialist who said, there are no downsides to this medicine. Here, try it for a month. And I did, and I never looked back. So my name is Rick Haaland. I wanted to put an open invitation to the church. If you're a church in the Fraser Valley, Vancouver area, and your members are curious about using medical cannabis, I don't have a challenge coming to your church and giving a free talk to get the conversation started, because there are members in the church that have PTSD. You don't think PTSD people go to church? There are alcoholics in church. There are drug addicts in church. There are people with anxiety and depression at church. There are people with chronic pain. And guess what? Even people with cancer go to church. So I think it's time that we had a very honest, transparent talk about medical cannabis and the church. I'm reaching out to the church to find out if you want to help your members with this amazing plant. Not only will I show you how to use it, but I'm going to educate you as to how to get the best value out of the medication, how to treat it with respect and dignity, how to make your own. There's a really specific way that I blend my medication. That it's really powerful, and it's a nice little ritual. I really enjoy it. Medical cannabis can keep you off of opioids. We need to have an open dialogue conversation, because the time for polite Canadian conversation about medical cannabis is kind of gone. We've got opium epidemics. We've got chronic pains out of control. We've got PTSD. People are getting cancer at I saw a podcast, I believe they said that in the next 5 years, 1 out of every 2 people will have cancer, some kind of cancer. Medical cannabis can be used many different ways. It doesn't have to be smoked, and you do not have to get high. I've been doing this for 5 years, and I love it, and I want to show people and teach people how to use it responsibly. Look, I have to function. I vape twice a day, but I do not get high. Do I get slightly euphoric? Yep. Do I drive for 4 hours after I vape? Nope. Absolutely not. But the pain control is unlike anything I've ever experienced. And I can still function. I can work. I can do everything I want and think. And actually, when I vape, I can focus more because the pain's lifted. So we need to start a conversation, an honest conversation. But if we hide from having a conversation about medical cannabis, sooner or later, somebody's going to come up to your church and say, hey, try this. And they're just going to hand them a joint. No, don't burn your medicine and use it responsibly. You must treat look, here's what I'm going to say. Medical cannabis, when used properly, is one of, if not the most powerful medicines, plant-based medicines on earth. Marijuana, the recreational side, when used improperly, can be one of the most powerful drugs, plant-based drugs on earth. See the difference? If it's used, the medical strains, and used for a purpose, and used responsibly, and if you have good, solid training, safety training, you shouldn't have an issue with using medical cannabis at all. Recreational side? Nah, we want to stay away from that as far as we can. I have no use for recreational marijuana. It just happens that there are about 15,000 different strains of marijuana, and you can count on about 10% of those strains being medical, so about 1,500 strains of marijuana. That's a guesstimate because it changes every hour. But they're going to cross over. There's going to be about 1,500 strains that's going to cross over any time from the recreational to the medicinal. How do we talk about that too? And that's important. Another thing is if you're using medical cannabis now, but you don't use any kind of healthy fat like a hemp oil or a coconut oil or an avocado, fats like that, or even whipped cream, heavy whipped cream in your coffee, you're missing the value because cannabis is fat soluble. And if you never take a healthy fat every time you use it, you're not getting the full extent of the medicinal value. And I teach that in my class as well. I teach the nutrition, and I teach the exercise, and the breathing, and things for pain control. So let's have a conversation, at least get the conversation going, because I think you're going to find out that when you find all of the areas where cannabis can help, and cannabis isn't for everybody. Okay, it's not a miracle, but the experts are saying it's pretty close to, it's close to being a miracle. Then we can, if we come to the conversation with open minds instead of stigma on our minds all the time, then we're going to get somewhere. But if we're continually afraid of having this conversation, then you're continually afraid of getting better. You're continually afraid of finding out if there's other alternatives that can handle your chronic pain. And I'm a chronic pain specialist, trust me. I live with chronic pain all day. Cannabis doesn't automatically, instantly take all your pain away. Well, I guess you could if you smoked your brains out, but that's not the way to use cannabis, you know? You want to use enough to take the majority of the pain off, but so you can still connect with your body and still function. That's the way to use cannabis properly. Folks, thanks for joining me. There'll be other talks in the future. My name is Rick Haaland, the owner of Diplomats of Dope. We hope to see you again in the future or at one of our free talks. Take care. Bye-bye.